In today's video, we're continuing on my quest to gain back control of my house. Over the past few months, I have been really struggling with motivation. And keeping on top of the house feels like I'm fighting a battle I'm just not equipped to win. And that's not for lack of trying, and I think that's what's gotten us into this particular situation. I have been so tired of trying and putting in more energy than I can really spare to still just be treading water when it comes to the housework. And if you can relate to that, I think this might be the series for you. If you haven't seen the first episode where I clean the kitchen, I'd recommend watching that one first because each video is going to be adding to the topic of conversation and I hope each video is going to net you something more. Anyway, today we're going to be cleaning the living room. I've got some 90s classics on to lift my mood. And whatever you're doing, whether you're cleaning along with me or listening along for a boost, we're going to get through it together. So usually, I have a kind of plan for each clean, but on this occasion, the best course of action was to just pick a spot and start. For anyone who watched the previous video, I just want to take a second to show you what the kitchen's looking like a week down the line. Bear in mind, as I'm doing the voiceover, all of the rooms in the house are now tidy and I'm trying my best to maintain them with 10-minute speed cleans. So as you can see, it's looking okay. It's looking like a normal lived-in family home. I've got a basket of washing, some pots to put away, I've got a stew simmering. Because I find when you're feeling overwhelmed with the house, one of the best gifts you can give to yourself is not having to fret about the dinner later. So just whacking ingredients in the slow cooker or the oven on low heat at the start of the day is the way forward. It takes a massive weight off your mind and you know later on you're going to be able to eat something cosy and comforting. I'm also trying to be more organised when it comes to things like planning meals for the week. And also I want to start trying to get on top of my finances more. So that's what that little list was on the board. Making sure I'm setting aside money for savings each month and a little for the boys' junior ISAs, which for those who don't know is a savings account that they can only open once they turn 18. So yeah, I've been feeling quite positive and like I'm on the right track. It's usually the case when the housework starts to get on top of you that other areas of your life simultaneously start to unravel. You know what they say, tidy house, tidy mind and all of that. I don't know whether I buy into that per se, but for the purposes of the point I'm trying to make here, it makes sense. So for me, when the house gets messy, I'll start to do things like skip the weekly shop. Because I'm behind on the house and I've got loads of other work I need to get done, because on top of working at Asda, I'm self-employed and I work from home now too. And just the thought of fitting in a big food shop on top of everything else just feels like too much. You know how long food shops take, planning out meals, making sure you haven't forgotten anything, and then putting it all away. It takes a lot of time. It's necessary, but it takes a lot of time. Ordering online is equally as stressful for me because I need the visual aspect to remember everything I need. And it just has this kind of domino effect where all of these things have a knock-on effect in your life, but one thing can't be solved without the other thing being solved at the same time. Are my ramblings making sense? I hope so. But what I'm trying to say in the simplest terms is the house becoming messy stops me from doing the food shop, which means I'm nipping to the shop every day to pick up that day's worth of groceries, or buying takeaways and ready meals, and that all adds up to me spending a lot more money than I really should be that week. And then my saving goals aren't met, or I'll end up in my overdraft at the end of the month. That leads to me feeling like I'm out of control and like nothing's ever going to change, and ultimately just feeling like I don't have a grip on my life. And those feelings of low self-worth lead to low motivation, which leads to more mess in the home, and the cycle just continues. So in this series, I'm trying to break that cycle once again, and I'm taking you along for the journey. I really like to hammer the point on my channel that life isn't linear. Sometimes we feel on track and like we've got everything figured out, and sometimes we spiral and things become too much for us, even things that seem simple. And while that can be really exhausting and demoralising, it's nothing to feel ashamed over. It doesn't mean we're failing at life, and trust me, I know it can feel like that when we're in the pits, or in the context of this series, our house has gotten into an overwhelming mess for what seems like the millionth time, and you're just thinking, oh, I am sick of this and sick of myself. Things aren't going to be consistent 100% of the time. Not life, not the seasons, not our moods. Life is just one big cycle full of little cycles that we have to ride out. And there can be a myriad of reasons why a mess like this might happen or keep happening. And that's really the theme of this series, delving into some of the reasons it happens for me, in the hopes that I can educate and prevent other people feeling so lonely in it. So in the first video, I discussed executive dysfunction and how it can affect a person and how they manage their home and their life really. And in this episode, I wanted to answer or respond to some of the really common comments I get. A lot of people say you justify yourself too much or you over-explain things, but that's a big part of who I am. I like to discuss the whys and talk things out. In my eyes, it's not justification, it's connection. It's connecting with the people who are going to benefit from hearing it, not necessarily the people who made the comments. Although, if I can get through to some people who have someone like me in their lives who maybe they've clashed with for a long time or could never get on the same page as, then that's a huge bonus. So the first comment I often get is along the lines of, I have depression and my house has never looked like that, or I would never let my house get like that. And I've always found that to be really jarring to hear. Firstly, because depression, like any other mental health issue, doesn't manifest the same in every person. We're not robots. We're not all the same. It's so complex. Some people, might be able to muster the motivation to keep on top of everything. Maybe that's a symptom of their depression. Their cleanliness is fueled by that. Maybe by a kind of underlying anxiety. Maybe insomnia is another symptom, and so they have a lot of extra time where they'd normally be sleeping. Other people know that getting up and sorting it every day is a way to manage their symptoms slightly, and somehow they manage to plod along every day and get it done. At the other end of the coin, some people can't even get out of bed and brush their teeth, let alone keep on top of anything. They're staying alive. They're getting through the day, and they're doing their best too. And not one of those people or scenarios, in my eyes, is morally better or managing better than another. Each experience is valid, and until you've spent a day living inside someone else's body and their brain, you have no right to compare how you manage to how they manage. When it comes to myself though, I don't have depression, and I consider myself extremely blessed for that. When you compare your depression and how you managed your house with depression to me and how I manage my house, it's comparing apples and oranges. I'm a very happy and content person, but I have executive dysfunction and ADHD. My experience is that of a neurodiverse person. And so you saying to me, I have depression and yet my house is still clean, is like saying to someone with dyslexia, I have depression and my grammar and spelling is perfect, so why isn't yours? You're not dealing with the same issues. Although yes, some things might overlap, of course. I used that analogy on TikTok and someone said, it's like me telling someone with depression to smile. Totally unhelpful and coming from a place of complete ignorance. So my message here, I guess, is don't do that to somebody. We should all take the time to listen more. We have no idea what the next person is going through or how hard it is for them to do something we'd consider really easy, and vice versa. The second comment I often get is, you've staged this mess for views. Or when I happen to mention that my house doesn't always look this way, or I have periods of time where I'm managing well, I'll get people saying, well, in every video I've seen of yours, your house has been in this same state. And my answer to that is, of course. Given my niche, I'm going to make content when my house is at its worst, and I know the videos are going to be helpful to people. Remember, on social media, everything you see is something someone's chosen for you to see. I said to someone the other day, whilst I try to be as open and honest as possible, you're still not going to get the full story or know everything there is to know about a person based on a social media account. And I said, because she was telling me what a bad mum I am and how I need to do better for my kids, which felt lovely, as you can imagine. But I said, you see what I'm allowing you to see, and you've built an image up of me in your mind based on that. But if you travelled over to, say, my Instagram account, a whole other picture would be painted for you of who you think I am as a person and a mother. And both of these accounts have been cultivated by the same person, by me. They're both who I am, and yet they give up a completely different energy. Meet me in person, know me in person, same again. We need to use our common sense and discernment in this giant world of social media that we're now all engulfed in. Anyway, on top of trying to help other people, getting the camera out and filming also helps me personally find motivation when I was struggling to find it before. I'm now in a very fortunate position as a person with executive dysfunction that I've been able to find a way to make the housework into my art, to make it grab my attention consistently and into something I'm passionate about. I get to make something meaningful out of the mundane and out of a task that has brought consistent shame and stress throughout my entire life. This channel and the knowledge that not only do I get to flex my creative muscle, but I also get to help and comfort people, that's what gets me up and tackling these spaces that in the past would have completely bested me and gotten a lot more out of hand than they do now. Messes like this, while they do still happen, and probably always will in this house, are few and far between now compared to how often it was happening even 2 years ago. I've come so far in my journey towards organisation and finding ways to manage my executive dysfunction and tips and tricks that trick me into getting things done. And I'm so proud of that, and I want to share that. Even if that means showing my house in some of its worst states and opening myself up to huge criticism. The people that I'm able to help far outweigh any hate I might get. Before I started making videos, and still today sometimes, I'd often turn to YouTube to find a body double to help me through my cleaning. I love watching people like Mac from Midwest Magic and Jodie Dunn from My Messy Life. I watch a lady on TikTok called Our House to Home, and she just does daily cleans, and it just really boosts your mood and it boosts your motivation. And so I know how valuable cleaning videos like this are. This is why I'm able to ignore people who criticise me for, air quotations, normalising mess. I've never considered my videos or any other videos in the same vein as normalising mess. These videos are never going to turn a tidy person into a messy person, let's be honest. They're never going to look at the state of my house at its worst and think, do you know what? I wish my house looked more like that. But what it might do is show someone who's really struggling and who doesn't know where to start that there's light at the end of the tunnel and that they can do this. And as for the people who think I staged the mess, I blooming wish. Who has time for that? And speaking of time, I had one last comment I wanted to discuss, but it's going to have to wait until the next episode because it's something I'm extremely passionate about and the footage of this video is running out and I don't want to rush it. So on the next video, I'm going to discuss you need to teach your kids to tidy up after themselves and your partner needs to help more. This is by far the most common comment I get on all of my videos and it's a valid comment and I'm really excited to discuss it. I'm going to be going into something that people often overlook when it comes to parents with ADHD or autism, and that's the fact that it's genetic. So while it's all well and good looking at a messy house and saying, you're being walked all over, you're the only one doing anything in this house, or assuming that the house has gotten to a certain state that the parents must do absolutely nothing to instill good habits in their children. But it's a lot more complex than that, so I do think that topic deserves a video in its own right. Anyway, we're almost done. 2 final things I want to mention. The lack of a dustpan. Yes, I know it's annoying watching me scoop everything up by hand, but I promise it's far more annoying misplacing it for the 100th time. And that's what happened. No idea where it is. And if I'd taken the time out to search for it, that would have been my quest for the day and I wouldn't have gotten this room clean. So I pick my battles. Which is also why I just shoved everything into the shoe cupboard instead of sorting it. That is a task for another day. When you're overwhelmed and things have gotten out of hand, you don't have to do everything in one go. Progress, reaching for a better feeling, a sigh of relief. That's what we're going for. One day at a time. One of the reasons people give up before they've even started is because they haven't figured out how to see a space and section up the tasks. They look at the mess as a whole entity and think, nope, absolutely not. And if that's how you're feeling right now, I have a lot of videos that might help in my How To When You're Overwhelmed playlist. Either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video and I'll see you in the next episode.